Hey, Dale here, and welcome to Evolve with me. I am so glad you're here with me, and if this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm Dale, and I'm the host of this podcast. And if you're coming back after episode 1, thank you for choosing to spend a bit of your time with me again. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed recording the last episode. And honestly, I had every intention of getting straight into the next one. But then, a week passed. And I realised something. This episode was being delayed. And in that moment, I was taken right back to how I felt before starting this podcast. All the reasons it took me so long to finally take the leap, which I'll talk about a bit later. And that's when today's topic popped into my mind. It was like one of those light bulb moments where you go, ping, this is what I need to talk about. Because I can relate to delays in my life, and I'm pretty confident I'm not the only one. Sometimes delays are completely out of control, aren't they? Like a bus or a train being late, or us being stuck in traffic, or waiting on an email or text. Those delays just happen. But there are also delays that come from us. Even if it doesn't always feel like it, especially when our circumstances or our environment or even the season of life we're in makes everything feel heavier or more complicated. And when I started noticing the delays that were coming from me, not my circumstances, I got curious. I started to ask myself, why? Why do I hold back on things I actually want to start? What's really going on there? So, in this episode, I want to share some of the things I've realised. The patterns, the insights, and the reasons these delays show up for me. And just a disclaimer here, I just want to say this up front. In my opinion, delays are always going to be part of life. Some are going to be completely out of our control, but some are very much within it. And what really matters, and what this episode is about, is learning to recognise the delays that are coming from us, and understanding how we can move forward with more awareness and compassion towards ourselves. So, welcome to episode 2. Okay, let's start right at the beginning with something I didn't realise for a long time. Now, delay and procrastination aren't always the same thing. And for years, I put them both together. If I wasn't doing something I wanted to do, I'd immediately label myself as a procrastinator. And truth be told, that label never really helped me. Because procrastination is usually the behaviour, the thing we can see. But the reason behind it, now, that lives underneath. And that part is emotional. Procrastination isn't about not wanting something. It's about wanting it and feeling resistance at the same time. It's a bit like trying to swim forward, while the current quietly pulls you back. The delay isn't happening because we're lazy or unmotivated. It's happening because something underneath us is pushing us back. Fear, overwhelm, pressure, vulnerability, uncertainty, all these feelings. And when you stop fighting the water and actually look at the current, you start to understand why moving forward felt so hard. Because we don't procrastinate on things that we don't care about. Let that sink in. We don't procrastinate on things we don't care about. We procrastinate on the things that matter, the things that feel important, meaningful, and have some emotional value towards it. So the issue was never that I am a procrastinator. It was me procrastinating on things that meant something to me. Here's where delay started to look very different to me. Delays come in all shapes and sizes. Some are tiny, microscopic, barely noticeable. Others feel huge, heavy, and impossible to ignore. And once I stopped labeling myself and actually paid attention to what was underneath the resistance, something clicked. Delay isn't a sign that we don't care, and it definitely isn't proof that we're failing, even though it really can feel like it. I've lost count of the times I've been frustrated with myself, wondering why I couldn't just do one small thing or take one simple step forward. And there were moments where I genuinely wanted to shout, "Come on, Dale!" But eventually, I stopped yelling and I started listening to myself. I would often ask myself, "What's going on here, Dale?" And that's when I realised something important. Delay is information. The reason behind it usually lives somewhere in our emotions, our bodies, or our nervous systems. And once I started seeing delay that way, everything changed. So, here's a small example of a delay that was coming from me and not from my circumstances. So, for a long time, I was the type to be on my phone late, scrolling away. And I was the type that would be well into my game on my phone, and I would be like, just 5 more minutes, Dale, and then we'll go to sleep. However, it's never 5 minutes, is it? And before you know it, you're way into the night, late night, and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally got lost in that game. I genuinely cannot be trusted with Angry Birds, and I no longer have it on my phone. So I was thinking, what can I do about this? And I came across sleep hygiene, and I remember thinking, ooh, I quite like this idea. And I imagined myself slowing down in the evening, turning my mobile off, leaving it outside the bedroom, in fact, and reading a few pages of a book before I softly went to sleep early. In my head, it all sounded lovely. I could even visualize it. But in reality, I did end up keeping on scrolling on my phone. I did end up playing on my game. I did end up having those late nights and waking up the next morning so annoyed with myself. So after a while, I stopped and asked myself, what's actually going on here? Why am I putting this off when I want to give things a try? And that's when it clicked. The behaviour looked like procrastination. It even felt like procrastination. But the real reason behind it was emotional. My nervous system didn't love the jump from being busy and stimulated straight into stillness. Slowing down meant being alone with my thoughts. And even when life is good, that can also feel uncomfortable. So this delay wasn't discipline. It wasn't about willpower. It was about safety. And once I understood that, I stopped trying to fix it with strict rules. Instead, I made the transition gentler. For example, I moved my phone out of reach. I replaced scrolling with reading, a few pages now and again, or a chapter, and slowly but surely, nighttime started to feel safe again. And the next day, I would feel so much better for it. Now, let's talk about a medium sized delay of mine. Conversations. Not just any conversations, but the ones we know we need to have, but they feel awkward, uncomfortable, or even emotionally risky. Those conversations. When I knew I needed to have one, instead of actually having it, I would overanalyze. I would rehearse every single word and imagine every possible outcome. I told myself I was, air quotes here, preparing, but really, at the heart of it, I was delaying. This wasn't procrastination in the classic sense I now know. This was emotional risk management because I cared about the relationship I had with the person I wanted to have one of those conversations with. I cared about being understood, and I really cared about the impact of my words. So the delay became a way of protecting harmony as well as protecting myself. But the longer I delayed, the heavier the conversation became. So instead of preparing the whole thing, I prepared one sentence. Just one. Something like, I don't know. Hey there, how are you? There's something I want to talk about. Now, it feels a bit awkward, but I really need to talk to you about dot dot dot. That was enough. Naming the awkwardness actually softened everything, and it took away the pressure to be perfect. This kind of delay isn't weakness, it's care, but care without boundaries. It's when we care so much about keeping the peace that we forget to include ourselves in that care. And once I started to see that, I realised something. Not all delays are about fear or discomfort. Some are about who we think we're allowed to be. And this is where the bigger delays tend to live. Some delays sit right at the edge of our identity. For example, starting a creative project, or launching a business idea, or leaving a job that no longer fits, or even going back into education in whatever stage of life you're in. These things aren't delayed because we don't care. They're delayed because they require us to grow into a new version of ourselves, a whole new identity shift. And for me, my biggest delays were starting this podcast and stepping into life coaching because starting meant being seen, being heard, and potentially being judged. In my head, it felt like once you start, Dale, you will never be the same person you once was. And that is huge, isn't it? So my mind did what minds do. It offered sensible sounding excuses. I need more confidence. The timing isn't right. I will start when I feel ready. I'll get going once I've completed this course. But here's what I eventually realised. Confidence doesn't come before the identity shift. It comes after. And as for readiness, sometimes it shows up when the discomfort of staying small becomes so much louder than the fear of growing. So I stopped asking, am I good enough? And I started asking, am I willing to be visible whilst I grow? And so I anchored myself into service and I kept on thinking about the reasons, my whys as to why I wanted to start a podcast and why I wanted to become a life coach. And slowly but surely, I took small intentional steps. And here I am, recording episode 2 and continuing to build my life coaching work. This delay wasn't procrastination, it was self protection mixed with self doubt. So let's clear this up once and for all. Procrastination is not a lack of intention. Because if there was no intention behind our desires, there'd be no guilt, no frustration, and no inner conflict or turmoil. Procrastination is what happens when intention meets resistance. It's choosing short term relief over long term alignment. And even though it shows up in our behaviour, in the lack of action towards our ideas and our goals and our desires, it actually begins in emotion. So, simply put, the root cause of delay is emotional. Delay is the internal response to that emotion, and procrastination is the behaviour that shows up when the emotion wins. So, before I finish, I want to leave you with a few Dale's Daily Prompts. Now, these aren't questions you need to answer perfectly. They're just invitations to get curious and to see, are these the type of delays that are happening to me, or are they delays that are coming from me? So, question one, what am I delaying right now? Question two, what feeling might I be avoiding by delaying it? And question three, what's one gentle step I could take today? Before I go, if this episode resonated with you, or if it made you feel seen, I'd really love it if you shared it, if you know someone that really would benefit from hearing this episode too. And if you are enjoying the podcast, I really hope so, don't forget to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. It genuinely helps this little space grow and evolve too. Thank you so much for being here and for spending this time with me. I so appreciate it. And until next time, keep evolving. Take care. Toodaloo!